Hi everyone, welcome back. Welcome to C# 2, and this week I'm going to just do kind of a warm-up program to review some of the object-oriented programming concepts from last semester and maybe throw in a few new things as well. But basically here, this is a gift basket program, and you'll see this is typical exercise that we would have done at the end of last semester where we have an array of objects, and so this is for like a gift basket store where you can order baskets. And so here's the interface. We're just kind of browsing through these items, and I only have like 3 baskets in here. And so I have a slight curveball in here for you, and this basket item is going to have an array data member or instance variable. So I don't think we did anything like that last semester. So let's take a look at the code. In this video I'll just show you the class file, the basket class, and then in a later video I'll go to the front end and we'll talk about the functionality in the interface, and then eventually we'll do some printing of like a receipt. Okay, so here we're in the basket class. If you recall the Solution Explorer, the class is already added. The code is here. I'm not going to waste time and have you sit there watch me typing code. So we'll just talk about the code that's here. You can pause it anytime you want to look at the code. But remember that we would right-click on the project name in bold there and then add a new class, a new item, if you wanted to add a class. But this one has already been added. So looking at the basket class, we have what, 6 private data members, the name, the price, and so on. Recall that I like to use an underscore for my private data members or instance variable names. It's like I like to save the good name for the property block, and those are down here more. I'll scroll down in a moment and show you those. But basically, we have our private data members. Now, 2 of them are interesting here. This one, look at that. That's an array as an instance variable or data member. And like I said, we haven't done that, but it's not a big deal. At this point, you're pretty good at processing arrays, and there's nothing stopping you from throwing in an array into a class like we've done here. And then we have, of course, the image for the photo. Remember that we have to include system.drawing up at the top in order to be able to use the image object in a class. And then we have this one. This is sort of interesting, the static data member. Now the static data member is one that is shared by all objects of that class. So any basket object that I create, the Chocolate Supreme, the Get Well basket, all of them are going to be looking at the same variable in memory. They don't have their own individual copies like they do these other ones. And that makes sense. There's only one basket count. There's only one number of the total baskets. So they all should be looking at the same number and do not need their own values there. So those are the data members or instance variables. Again, we're keeping it private for now. And then recall that, I'm going to save the constructors for last, but recall that, private data is useless unless you have some sort of backdoor means to get at that data, and we do this through the property blocks, and so public property blocks. So for example here, this one's for the name, and this is what I was talking about, saving the good clean name for the property block and use the underscore in the private data member, because the property block name, that's what's exposed to the outside world in the IntelliSense, and that's what people see. So it makes sense to use the clean one there. So anyway, these I probably generated with the shortcut method. Remember that from last semester. If you right-click on a property anywhere, put your cursor anywhere in that word, and then I believe you can go to Quick Actions and Refactoring, and then that first one there should be fine, the encapsulate field name. Now I've already done that, so the properties are already there, and I did it for all of those, and those properties were auto-generated. So let's look at the constructors. Recall that a constructor is it's a special method that allows you to initialize an object as it's being created and hit the ground running with hopefully some nice meaningful values, some good data values. So typically I'll have you code the default constructor, which is like what I call the nothing constructor, no parameters, typically an empty body. Now we do have an increment here for the inventory count, but typically we don't add anything in here in our exercises. And then we have an overloaded constructor. Now this one's more important. This is the one that's going to be used by our interface. But here we have recall what overloaded methods are. Same name. You see how these are overloaded? Same exact name, character for character, basket, case matters, and then different parameter lists. You see how this one has what, five parameters? This one has 0 parameters. That's different. Okay, so we have overloaded methods, in this case overloaded constructors. Also, how do you spot a constructor from a mile away? It has no return type. See, you go public and then no return type. It dives right into the name, and the name is exactly the same as the class itself. This is the basket class with a small b. I probably should have made that a capital B. And this is the basket constructor. So that's how we know that it's the constructor. So anyway, this one is more interesting. We have the parameter values coming in. One for each of the private data members, excluding the inventory count, which is a static member. That's kind of kept track of internally. So these values are being passed in, a string for the name, a decimal for the price, an integer for the shipping time in days, I imagine. And here, look at this, the array coming through the door with the items that the basket contains, okay? So we'll talk about that when we talk about the interface. But so if the basket contains like these 3 items, then that array of 3 strings is coming through the door, and we'll use that to initialize the contains array instance variable. Okay, and then of course the image is coming through as well. So basically, once those values are in the door, we use an assignment statement to assign those values to the private data. I am incrementing the static inventory count in each constructor. Look, the constructor fires automatically. It executes automatically when you create a new object. So every time I create an object, a constructor is firing. So that means I need to increment the inventory count, even if it was a nothing basket. I'm going to increment, and then I'm going to increment here too. So that'll keep track of the number of baskets within the class internally, and then we can expose that to the outside world in the interface using the static property, which is all the way down here. Okay. So in the next video, I'll go to the front end and we'll talk about the interface.